The California Golden Seals are back in the second round of the playoffs after narrowly escaping a collapse against the Vancouver Canucks. We find ourselves with home ice advantage against the 42-win Minnesota Wild. They barely made it, 3-7 in their last 10. They struggled to get here. However, they pulled off one hell of an upset. Absolutely wiping the floor with the Vegas Golden Knights, who we thought we were going to have to go through as well. After slipping up at the end of the regular season, it looked like it was a certainty that we were going to have to go through Vancouver and Vegas if we wanted any chance for success. And because of that, our chances at success seemed quite slim. Yet here we are with the best opportunity we may ever have in this series to find success. As far as the team is concerned, heading in to this matchup, we have worked some things around. We've called some players back up, and I'm really looking at rewarding players who have performed the best thus far. Hence the first line of Redden, Ivanov, and Baldwin. Wong, Fragapani, and Krog make up the second line. Again, perhaps a bit controversial to break up Redden and Fragapani yet again. And then Krog is the biggest question mark I think we have on this team, where he's putting up points, but despite 91 discipline, he's taking a lot of penalties, and I imagine it is the 87 aggressiveness that counterbalances that. The third line of Kaliev, Booz, and Koriston. Fourth line of Webb, the recalled Gary Lieb, and Rudy Barahowski. The offense, of course, is in the best shape it has ever been. Defensively as well, same story. Niedermeyer, Rokan will continue to be the top pairing. Lalonde's going to start on the second pairing with Zeeler. Fuller will be with Pielstrom. And then we have the goaltenders. Brock Sestito had a simply phenomenal first round, in my opinion. Of course, regular season, he was looking pretty good, as of course he has developed, but a .941 save percentage compared to last year, where it was a tad bit rough. But through that 7-game series, he was phenomenal and gave us every chance to win against Vancouver. And then, of course, there's Pedro Wilson. Brick wall Wilson. Hopefully, though, we don't have to turn to him at any point in time during this series. With all of that said, let's take a look at what we are up against. This Minnesota Wild team that were able to knock the Vegas Golden Knights, Alexis Lafreniere, or I believe it's Alexis Lafreniere, I think the S is somewhat silent, former second overall pick in Lindros, Easton Corso, Tyler Seguin. They had one hell of a team. Ristolainen was on their third line. What does this team look like that was able to overcome that threat? And that is wow. All right. So, numerous questions are going through my mind here. I think first and foremost is, how is this team a 40-win, or a 40-some-odd win? I think it was 43. How did this team only win 43 games? That is a very strong offensive core. Matthew Tkachuk, 6 points in those 4 games. They have Warren Morris, who was a former number 2 overall pick. Mark Stone is there, granted at 34 years old. You have Jake DeBrusk, Mikhail Granlund, Nikita Sherbak. Third line of Carson Torniski, Luke Kunin, and Bryce Lamb, who's a former first-round pick, 21st overall. And the fourth line is Jude Cutler, Adam Lowry, and Sasha Mutala. That is not going to be easy to overcome. I got to be honest, as well-rounded as we are, they have some game changers on that team, especially Morris. You know, he's not confirmed at 91, but we pretty much know that he is. Defensively, it doesn't get any easier. Jesus, Jeffrey McCarthy, former second overall pick. So Minnesota has struggled for a while. Minnestruggle, we'll call it. They have Minnestruggled for quite a bit, but McCarthy is a monster. They have Donald Harper, a former second-round pick. Second pairing is Ben Hutton with Cody Ceci, and third pairing Colin Miller with Alex Pietrangelo at 37 years old. So it's not a great defense core. You would imagine Pietrangelo is much further down than an 86, but they have a true game changer in McCarthy and no severe weaknesses. My God, no wonder why they swept Vegas. Gene Beck, .942 save percentage for the former 19th overall pick of the Dallas Stars. Healthy scratches to Foley, Simone Dupre, and Matt Robertson. This is going to be difficult. As is normally the case, any bit of optimism I have slowly starts to dissipate the more we look at another team's lineup. It's not really as big of a question as to how they were able to overcome Vegas. The big question heading into this series is, can some of our underperforming players deliver? Can we get the job done? Like I said, this might be our best chance to ever get the job done. So let's see what we can do. Game 1 on home ice, Oracle Arena in Oakland. Let's see what we can do. First period is scoreless. 12 shots to 9 in our favor. Nothing doing, though, on the scoreboard. Second period, that is not helpful. Granlund and Kunin, 30-some-odd seconds apart. 2-0 Wild. We're out shooting them, but our backs are against the wall early. 2 quick goals surrendered. I feel like Kunin was Sparta kicking Sestito to the back of the net, if you see where he scored from. Third period, it's time to show a little bit of character. It's time for our big-name players to step up if we don't want to drop this first game. As Gary Lieb gets us back in, unfortunately the colors are very similar, but that's all right. Lieb gets us back into this game after he was called up. 7 minutes remaining. Is there a second goal to be had? Can we tie this game? 1 minute to go, and Cody Ceci with the empty netter will end this one. 3-1 final in favor of the Wild. We outshot them, but it did not matter. Gene Beck was able to shut the door. A first-star performance for him. Luke Kunin gets that goal. And the Wild achieve their goal of winning a game on the road to begin this series. They remain undefeated in this postseason. Puts a little bit of pressure on us. We are going to jump into game 2, however, without making any changes. We're not going to panic just yet. Let's see what the team is capable of here. In this second game, we need to win this one. We cannot afford to go to Minnesota down 2-0, especially with them still being undefeated. First period, let's see what we can do. And yet again, it's scoreless. Pretty much even in shots. We'll see what happens here. Second period, also scoreless. They have the slight edge in shots. The first goal is going to be oh so important. We need Redden. We need Fragapani, Baldwin. We need our big name players to step up right here and right now. These are the moments where they are going, as we have a power play opportunity, these are the moments where they are going to make or break this series. This is it. 5 minutes to go in the third period. Power play chance for the Wild, and Jake DeBrusk scores. Part of me feels like I said we got shut out in game 1. We didn't. We definitely got shut out in game 2. A 27 save shutout for Gene Beck. Sestito, yet again, gave us every chance to win it. The Wild take both games to start this series, and that puts us into an extremely difficult spot. Going to Minnesota for the next 2 games, they are still undefeated. How do we get ourselves out of this mess? Sestito still has a very strong save percentage. Defensively, the top pairing's been fine. Unfortunately, it's the bottom 6 that hasn't really had it going. I think we're going to reunite Lalonde and Pilstrom. We'll get Fuller back into an opportunity to play some more big-time minutes. Hopefully he makes the most of that. Defensively, Barahowski still just 1 point. 1 point for Lieb, a -2. 1 point for Webb. That fourth line, the members of the fourth line have been completely inefficient, as have the majority of our role players, if we're going to be honest. 9 games in now, at this point, and we are not seeing the point totals that we need if we're going to have success. So, it's a little bit of a risk, but I think we will. You know, we're kind of good. Like, even then, it's like if I want to flip Booze and Lieb, how much does it really help us? It's simply down to our players needing to perform, and they have not. We know we have guys like Hossa, Gray, Halvardson, even Maurice Bourret could potentially step into the lineup, but it would almost be a form of self-sabotage to try and fool the sim engine. But 1 point for Barahowski, Lieb, Webb, 3 points for Koristin, Booze, only 2 points for Arthur Kaliev. How many changes could be made? We're going to make the slight change at center. We're not going to go overly dramatic with our changes. But if we lose game 3, all bets are off in terms of the desperation when it comes to setting up the roster that will be displayed to try and save us. This is must win. Down 2-0. We're in game 3. Or we're in Minnesota for game 3. Let's see what happens. First period, and the Wild get the first period goal of this series. Jake Dabrowski scored the winner. In the last game, he gets the first goal of the game. This time out, we had 13 shots, no goals. Second period, we are in a shitload of trouble. The Minnesota Wild are steamrolling opponents right now. We go to the third period down 3-0. Koristin gets a goal back, so we will not be shut out in back-to-back games, thankfully. So we're able to kill off a Wild power play. Halfway through the third period now. Do we have a late outburst to get back into this game? 2 minutes left. And the Minnesota Wild have taken a 3-0 lead in this series. And I don't think, for me personally, it's registered that we're in this much trouble. We have 2 goals in 3 games. And like I said at the start of the episode, and I truly believe it, as we, again, were able to get past Vancouver and we're able to avoid Vegas. On paper, this was our best chance yet to try and make a better push for any sort of success. And unfortunately, that's just not going to happen. You look at someone like Zeeler, Fuller underperforming, Pilstrom hasn't been great. I mean, the morale system's off, obviously. So I can do whatever the hell I want in terms of setting up this roster. Let's drop the players who aren't performing. It literally cannot hurt to try and change things up as we've done before. Kaliev was able to get an assist. He has 3 points now. But Webb, Barahowski, Koristin with 4 points. Lieb still with just 2. I think at the very least we're going to look to call up Gray and Halvardson. And I think some of the other guys that I was going to look to drop. And let's take a look here. So 3 points for Booze, Kaliev, 4 for Koristin, 4 for Krog, 2 points for Lieb, 3 points for Wong. It just has not been what we've needed it to be. So disappointing. 2 goals in 10 games for Dylan Redden. If you want to look as to why we've lost, if you want to look at where to point fingers, we have 3 goals in 10 games between Redden and Fragapane. They have completely fallen apart. They have fell short of every possible expectation. And I just don't know how far to go with some of these lineup changes, because is it honestly going to make that much of a difference? I'm not sure if it is. Do I want 2 points to be the cutoff? Do I want 3 points? I think Lieb has to go. We'll call up Hossa again. And then from there, what do we even look to do? 3 points for Booz and Kaliev. 3 points for Krog. Actually, 4 points for Krog. 3 for Wong. So brutal. So absolutely brutal to see this team fall short in this way. I think we're going to keep Caden Wong in the lineup, but let's call up Bure and Roenick. What's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? What, we lose again? I mean, sure, keeping the lineup in the best shape it possibly can be, in theory, is the right way to go. But it's also led to us, again, being steamrolled so far in this series. So, the logic, as chance would have it, hasn't really applied much to this series now, has it? So, you can certainly debate some of the decision making, and I would understand, but wow, I just can't believe I'm even in the situation where it's like, okay, this is what we're doing. So Krog's going to be on the fourth line, because why would he not be? 4 points for Corriston, 3 points for Wong. So Wong's going to be dropped. This is a tragedy that we're this bad, that we've performed or underperformed to this level. I think we'll go for Bure and Roenick. Let's run. Let's run with this setup right here. Glad to know I've lost my connection to the EA servers. Thank you, EA. Good to know. What do we want to do? I think we might be good. We might be. Actually, can a Dan Gray play center? Not really. Can Hossa play center? Kind of. Let's flip those two back around. Put Ivanov here. And, yeah. Yeah, that works for me. A mishmash of random talent, because why the hell not? So many members of this team, top to bottom, have underperformed. It's game 4 in Minnesota. The tactic of wholesale changes to the lineup have worked before in terms of us getting back into a series. We'll see if it happens here, or perhaps we lose by more than 2 or 3 goals. We'll see. First period, as we are down 1-0 yet again. Sasha Mutala, the opening goal. This time we were outshot 15-4, so there's the negative side, I guess, to making the lineup weaker. Second period, 2-0, Tkachuk. Third period, I'm going to hit the A button. Let's see what happens. 3, 2, 1, and the Minnesota Wild have swept us out of the playoffs. We scored 2 goals in 4 games, and our season is over. The best chance on paper to succeed. And much like the Vegas Golden Knights, we fall to the wayside. For the Minnesota Wild to make one hell of a charge towards potential success, we'll see. It looks like they were going to be playing Nashville in the conference final. And then from there, who knows? Whether or not I feel any better, wow. Well, what do you think? Do you feel any better knowing that we lost to the inevitable Cup winners? The Minnesota Wild organization pulls the double. Both Wild teams winning the Stanley and Calder Cup respectively. The Minnesota Wild truly steamroll their way to a Stanley Cup. And again, I don't know if that makes me feel better about the situation or not. The Wild lost 1 fucking game. They went on to sweep Nashville and then lost 1 game to the Islanders. They Golden Stated that run. The Iowa Wild, it wasn't as easy of a run, but they still find success. We know what that team looks like, but my God, the Minnesota Wild dominate en route to a Stanley Cup final. Tyler Seguin, the Art Ross Trophy winner, his team was swept. He won the Hart as well. Engel won the Norris. So that recent San Jose pickup, or somewhat recent. Tyler Seguin won the Lady Byng. The Calder goes to Bolton in Edmonton. Beck won the Conn Smythe. Shocking. Demko, the Vezina for the second straight year, as well as the Jennings. The Masterton of Marco. McDavid wins the Selke for the second year in a row. And Tyler Seguin, the Ted Lindsay. Vinehandle, yet again, won the Rocket Richard. Down in the AHL, we will look for any familiar names, and that is not going to happen. Nick Suzuki and Cook at the very least. So there you go, but not major awards. It sucks to say that season's over. It sucks that we're heading into a draft right now. This team could have done so much more. Could have been so much better. Yet our season is over. Our season is over. As you guys get a look at some of the developments. So at the very least, the future's still bright in a way. But our two biggest challengers in terms of regular season success went by the wayside. And when it looked like it was going to be our year, turned out it wasn't our year. It was Minnesota's. As we get a look here, St. Louis ends up with the number 1 overall pick. Of course, we are not in the lottery. Draft class-wise, we'll get a look momentarily. A lot of the guys at the top of the board won't be available anyway, so what's the point in looking as Patrick Kane retires well over a point a game? Erik Karlsson also had nearly 1,100 points as a defenseman. Of course, we started this series before the Sharks trade. James Reimer also calls it a career at 39 years old. He had himself a pretty solid career. So we end up losing a European scout, which is somewhat harmful, admittedly. We'll see if there's a half-decent scout available. I'm sure we'll have to re-sign some scouts. Regardless, in a way of just trying to move on and not be so overly negative about our team just completely crumbling, let's go ahead. We'll go through the draft in this episode, and we'll see who the new recruits will be. So we have the 24th pick. Always a good sign. Duclair went to St. Louis as the number 1 overall selection. Who do we have available to us here? We have Colin Richter. Solid potential, solid point total for a 17-year-old defenseman. A's and B's, Vlasic comparison. I like that. You have Orlando Darling at 6'4", 44 points as a 17-year-old. B's and C's. Did I say B's and C's? I meant A's and B's for Richter, but we have B's and C's for Darling. So right now, Richter is still the way to go. The fact, too, you look at his scouting ranking compared to where we are. He probably shouldn't have fallen to us. Blake Rivers, 72 points for an 18-year-old. B's and C's, Giroux comparison. That's promising. Sylvain Duret, again, a really good point total for a defenseman, even in the queue. And then Jalen Veshy. Shea Weber comparison. We're pretty much locked in with who we're taking here. Boisclair? Not quite. Yeah, I'd say we're pretty much locked into who we're taking here. There is the low elite in Altonen, but we have our guy. Especially, too, in terms of starting grades. We will take the American, Colin Richter, who somehow fell to us. He's a defensive D-man capable of putting up points. Colin Richter, welcome to California. As we jump to the second round, at least that first round choice was relatively easy. And in the second round, we do still have some options. So Bedrick Somick, B's and C's, the potential, of course, not that great. Howard DeVoe, 20 points as a defensive D-man. B's and C's, that's not terrible, but we do have the low elite and Mika Vataluoma. Let's go with that. The 20-year-old. B's and C's primarily, but 1A in terms of puck skills. So right now he is looking like the way to go. Torsten Svedberg, the 18-year-old. We don't know enough about him. That Brian Leach comparison's amazing, but, you know. Adam Delmore, good point total for a 17-year-old. We don't know enough about him. A couple of other low sixes. And Yahir Sawatsky, B's and C's. And Victor Mikanov, A- in shooting. But the low elite right now is the favorite. You have a medium starter. in LeClaire. You have a low 6 gem in Billy Lovejoy. Low 6 gem in Billy Lovejoy. And you also have Braden Champion. Hell of a name. Unfortunately, not looking like the guy that we're going to take here. I think I'm going to go back up towards the top of the board. Pretty straightforward. We'll take the low elite. He might be 20, but it's looking like he's going to be at least somewhat close to NHL ready, especially with that puck skills category. That would be Mika Vitaloma. Who will be our second round selection. So 1 defenseman and 1 forward thus far. To the third round we go. And we'll see who's available here. So we have Carl Rosa, the goaltender, 904 save percentage, B's and C's, nothing too special. Cam Ward comparison, so no thank you. Sutter, I'm going to avoid. We want to find somebody with that bit higher of a potential. We start off with Evan Dalton, low top 4 gem. The 18-year-old, B's and C's. It's promising. You have Jonah Hutton. Decent point total, but not great for an 18-year-old. B's and C's primarily, but A- in shooting. Very interesting. You have another gem in Martin Cole. Decent point total. B's and C's. I think we'd probably go for maybe Hutton over him. We have some good options here still, which is very nice. I have to admit, though, as we get a look at the main 3, Dalton as a gem. Again, B's and C's. You have Jonah Hutton. B's and C's, but that A- in shooting. Not confirmed at a low elite. And then Martin Cole, B's and C's as well. I think I'm going to take the... It's tough because it's like, okay, well, there's 2 gems, but then there's Hutton, who has that great shooting category. And I really do like the looks of that shooting category. 14 goals with said ability. Gotta be honest, it might be controversial to not take one of the 2 gems, but I like what I see more with Jonah Hutton. He's going to be the pick. He's going to be the pick. Obviously, if either of the 2 gems are medium potential, it'd make that decision much easier. But we'll go with Hutton. Onward to the 4th round. Who will we find, if anybody? We have Ruben Michalski, but, you know, a D in defense. Nice. Jakob London. Good old Jakob. Not looking that great, though. Also have the goaltender Stanislav Ponikarovsky. Solid save percentage, solid starting grades as well. The Leonard comparison's scary, but that could work. Ethan Mayer as well. Stats aren't as great. Neither are the grades. So Ponikarovsky right now is the favorite. We have the low top 4 and Jesus Courtnall. Jesus Courtnall. The Courtnall. But it's not all that promising. We have a high bottom 6 in Gail Devon. No. Matthias Kruger out of Rogel. Also not that great. Potentially a B- in defense. Again, none of these are confirmed. Stanley Leopold, no. And Jonathan Maroon, also no. We might be going goalie unless Victor Saugus. I'm going to guess the grades aren't that great, and they're not. But it could be worth trying to develop Victor Saugus. We have Holloway. Not a bad point total, but he is an overager. Zach Parise comparison. Okay, so as far as the pinned players go, we either take the goaltender in Stanislav Ponikarovsky, who again, his starting grades are very promising, or we go for Victor Saugus, who admittedly there might be an outside chance of him still being available later on in this draft, especially, I'm going to risk it. I think Saugus might still be there. I'm going to go for the goaltender, Ponikarovsky. I like the starting grades. I like the stats as well. We'll take Ponikarovsky and we'll see if Saugus is still available. And it looks like there's a very good chance of that being the case, which would be nice to get the old 2-for-1 special. And there we go. Saugus is still there. We will double check in terms of, soon-to-be drafted players. Like Stefan Larocque, who isn't looking that great. Sergei Nikitin, the 18-year-old, absolutely not an E in puck skills. Neat. We have the medium top 6, Shannon Polasek. No points in 13 games as a 19-year-old. C's and D's. Nikita Turikov is an 18-year-old, played in Russia, 2 goals. B's and C's aren't terrible. Of course, the potential's not locked in. We also have Amir Ludwig, 18-year-old, solid point totals. We don't know a ton about him. Backlund style comparison. You have the medium elite and Zachariah Andreoff. Decent save percentage. Starting grades are going to be quite low. Philip Reyes, 18 points as an 18-year-old is all right, but the grades, there's not enough there. And then Seabrook. Timothy Seabrook, the grinder. Majority C's, but a couple of B's. I think Downey will be the last guy that we check. It's not looking that great. So as far as who we have pinned, it would be Saugus, Seabrook, Polasek, and other than that, it'd be a little bit of a guessing game. So again, Victor Saugus, predominantly D's, C's and B's for Seabrook, or Polasek, C's and D's. So, I mean, Seabrook, in terms of grades, is the best option, but he's also a grinder, so the ceiling's not going to be as high. So I think that's going to disqualify him from contention here. Again, Polasek, I think we're just going to go for Saugus. Let's go for the defenseman Victor Saugus. We'll see if it works out. I think the bright point, too, is he's a year younger than Polasek. So we'll take the American defenseman Victor Saugus, our second defenseman of this draft. We have 2 defensemen, 2 forwards, and a goaltender as we head into the 6th round. And we'll start paying a little bit more attention towards the best sorted potential at this point, which includes McCauley there. But again, there was Zachariah Andreoff. Don't really trust it. We have Parker Strimbo, who is way down the board in terms of projection. That's not going to happen. Eric Downey, 7 points as a 19-year-old. Not looking all that great. Still might be an option, though. Corbin Comrie, decent save percentage. Starting grades are a little bit low. You have Nicholas Goldman. If I'm going to take another goalie in this draft, they have to really win me over. Goldman does not. We get to Ben McCauley. No points in 30 games. C's and D's, but a low elite gem. He is probably next up on the board here for us. Guillermo Rawlings, 20 points as a 19-year-old. Not looking all that promising. Lance Ronning, as a 19-year-old. What else do we have? Philip Reyes, 18 points. Not looking great. Jack Lundeen, 29 points, but as a 20-year-old. Potential D in defense. Do we have any other gems as well, or is it just the one left? C's and D's for Armsden. Nornan, not quite. Guy Goulet, 22 points, but not quite there. Josh Hamonic, 25 points as a defenseman. Straight C's. It's not terrible. The potential is not locked in. Halischuk, 30 points. Could be worth a look. We also have Rylan Bouwmeester. Hello, Mr. Bouwmeester. I like that point total for an 18-year-old. Cody with a K, Halischuk. Not bad. Not great either. Rene Richard, I would assume. The QMJHL connection. We're going to have some decent options here. At least in terms of okay, it's not slim pickings. We're going to have our pick of the litter here. Tikkanen. Not quite. And then Tuomas Sikola. Not bad. He's terrible with the puck. But not terrible in general. Dalton Pandolfo. No other gems. Okay. So we got 56 seconds before I have to potentially call a timeout. Who do we have here? I really liked Bouwmeester. Again, though, showing up as a potential grinder. I think he might be more of a two-way, though. Especially if you look at the points. And then who else was there? There was the low elite McCauley. We're going to take Ben McCauley next. We're going to trust the final gem of this draft, especially as a low elite. And from there, we'll figure it out. Got a feeling it's going to be another forward. 7th round, final selection. Who do we have pinned at this point who's still available? We have Richard, Bouwmeester, Halischuk, and Halischuk. So Rene Richard, 18 goals, 29 assists as a 19-year-old. B's and C's, although it's not locked in. You have Rylan Bouwmeester. Again, 46 points as an 18-year-old. B's and C's, 1D, not locked in though. Cody Halischuk, decent point total, 38 points. A couple of extra D's. I think I'm going to remove him from the list, even though he's the highest on our scouts' rankings. And then Grayson Halischuk. Also not terrible, not overly physical. Halischuk, Bouwmeester. or Rene Richard. B's and C's for Richard, but I like the mystery box of Bouwmeester and Halischuk, both centers. Again, the 1 D minus there, and then Grayson Halischuk. D in senses and physical. Not locked in, however. I'm going to go with... man, who do I go with here? I'm going to go with my gut. I know he's way down the board. I'm going to take Rylan Bouwmeester from the Prince George Cougars, and we will see if he actually ends up being a two-way as opposed to a grinder. Just a hunch of mine, based off the low penalty minutes. But we start off this draft with Richter, and overall, time will tell, but I feel like we did pretty solid. That's my initial impression, as we will get through the re-sign phase as well here, hopefully. Let's set up this team for next season, as we're at risk of losing a couple of scouts, which really isn't all that surprising. And we'll see if we can at least get this team, at least get this team set up for this next season, be able to look at the squad and say, hey, you know what, this episode didn't start off the way we were hoping, but we're still good to go in the future. You know, it's not as if that because we lost there, we're going to be taking a massive step back. I wouldn't expect that to be the case. We're looking all right. It's just a matter of players actually performing once we get to the playoffs. So let's see here. And Fragapani's contract is up. That's going to be a big-time negotiation. So goaltending-wise, again, as planned, Fedorov will be on the outs, unfortunately. Iliakis will take over. We still have Saprikin, and guys like Ballard, Crabbe, and Ponikarovsky will not be signed. So we need to keep Brickwall Wilson for a while, and you would have seen, you might have taken a look, we have about $20 million in cap space. So now is the time where we need to play it a little bit safe. That's the problem. When you draft well, it can start to add up. We're going to be able to drop that down to 1.6. He's not going to be the long-term backup, aside from the fact that it's Brickwall Wilson. Iliakis will also get a deal at 21. So we're able to swing it that way with him getting that extra development while being unsigned. Defensively, of course, the core is good to go. Pilstrom's locked up. From there, we need to decide what else we're going to be looking to do. So Jenks, Cook, Reichel, Fernandez, Foy, and Bannister would be the other 6. So we still have Collins. That's 1 too many. 2, 3 with Waters. And that's it. So Dadonov and Waters were 7th potential, which is why they're not playing. So again, if we go back, Jenks, Cook, Reichel, Fernandez, Foy would be 5. Bannister would be the 6. And then Cullen. So we need a spot for Cullen. So we need to ditch 1 defenseman. To play it safe, we need to ditch 1 defenseman. So it's going to be Cullen, Bannister, Foy, Fernandez. And then between Reichel and Cook, and I mean, Cook's the better defenseman. So I think this spells the end of Jerry Reichel's tenure here at 27 years old, a former second-round pick in that very first draft. As you get a look at the numbers here, he spent the past 3 seasons in the AHL. But Jerry Reichel's career here, needless to say, he's going to finish as a minus player. Jerry Reichel's career in California is over. We will look to bring back Cook for the year, just to have the AHL squad be a little bit better. So again, it'll be Jenks, Cook, Fernandez, Foy, Bannister, and Cullen. Foy as well will bring back on a 1-year deal. There's no guarantees, especially with some of the guys whose contracts will be up next year. The likes of Hancock, Holmberg, that'll have to be signed, that the 2 guys we're bringing back this year aren't going to be immediately moved out. Right wing, here's where it gets interesting, right? So first thing is Fragapani. Here's the issue. He doesn't want to come back. That is going to be extremely problematic for us, and I'm not being melodramatic here when I say that there is an outside chance of us potentially losing Fragapani. That's the first thing I'm going to try to take care of, though. We're going to offer him a little bit more than what he wants as a 5-year deal. I'd love to go up to 8. I just don't see that happening. We have to play this very, very carefully. Especially with any RFAs we have. So Foy, Iliakis, Fragapani rejected. Cook also rejected. Wilson is back. So there's actually an outside chance of us ditching Cook as well. He's 27. Again, I offered him. I think I offered him the max deal. Yeah, we did offer him the max deal. I think Cook's going to be on the way out. Which means, again, we're waiting for Dadnoff and Waters' deals to expire. So we could bring in Hancock and Will. So that is the alternative. If you want to reject a max deal, hey, by all means do so. That does mean Kyle Cook is also going to be on the way out. So unfortunately, overall-wise, the AHL defense is going to take a hit. He was a 5th-round pick in that first-year draft, but if he doesn't want to accept that max deal, he can go rot on the free agent list. Kyle Cook is gone as well. Now, forward-wise, we still have $20 million in cap space. There may be some questions over Lieb's future. Again, if only he was willing to accept a deal, it would make these negotiations that much easier. We're paying Redden 11.2. Can I lock Fragapani up long-term at like 10.75? That is my next attempt. Regardless, I mean, I need to see what happens there, because that's 8, right? 8 at Kaliev. 16. Beret, 24. That's the NHL and AHL covered, which means Arkhipov is extra. Sauve is extra. Francois is an extra. Not to mention Lionel Saugus, who we are going to be ditching. Like, that's pretty much confirmed. He was a 6th-round pick in the true first-year draft, not the post-expansion draft. So say goodbye to Mr. Saugus as it stands. But we have to sort some stuff out here. And right now, first and foremost, the Fragapani negotiations are the most important. As Nina Graps, as a scout, comes back, Hancock has accepted, and Fragapani has actually accepted. So that works for me. We only had to offer him $400K more than what he would have been looking for on an 8-year deal. Whether or not we regret giving Fragapani an 8-year deal, time will tell. But the first ever draft pick in this series history will be here throughout the remainder of his prime, which in a way is a pretty good sign, but that leaves us with $10 million to negotiate, which makes someone like Lieb very interesting as an RFA. Very interesting. So again, right there's 8. If we go down, we have 16. From Bure, we have 24. So again, Nazarov is one player too many. So someone like Franzen, right? If we schedule him as an RFA, he's not going to be claimed anyway, and he'll just come back. But we are going to let him go to free up a spot for Nazarov. Medium top 9 potential, 23 years old. He's not going to make it. He was a 5th-round pick in 2024. So unfortunately, Brennan Franzen is going to be let go. There's an outside chance as well of guys like Whitmore and Moreau. Thankfully, Soreau doesn't have to be signed, but we still have Sauve under contract. Francois as well. So we do have to sort this out. Some players are going to leave the team. So again, Coriston is the 8th. Beret is the 16th. Now Nazarov is the 24th. So we need to get rid of 2 other players. 2 forwards have to go. The big question here, though, is the future of someone like Lieb. Caden Wong has a contract coming up next year. I think forward-wise is where we're going to be hurt the most. There's a really good chance. Unfortunately, I think Lieb and Krogh next year are the only 2 that would likely be signed to a decent enough deal compensation-wise. I feel like we just end up getting back Barahowski and Webb without being really able to negotiate that contract. So Moreau being 23... Roenick is a year younger than Whitmore at the time. Bure is a 77. He is a year older, but already 3 overall points better. I think the 2 guys to get rid of, if we want to keep as strong of a roster as possible, I'm very tempted. What is Lieb looking for? 6 mil. So Lieb is looking for 6 mil. Corriston's looking for 2. I think we might be losing Lieb. Former 4th overall pick. I think we might be losing Gary Lieb. Which, you know what? He's not proving to be much of a point getter. Despite 90 offensive awareness. At best, even at 5 mil for the next season, we're able to drop that down to 4.3 if we were to go for an 8-year deal. I'm going to qualify Gary Lieb, and we're going to let him go to free agency. And then again, that is the only way, for those of you unfamiliar with Draft to Glory, that is the only way that I am allowed to essentially get more picks, is we are allowed to let players go as RFA is to get those extra draft picks. So we've been very selective when we've done that. That's why when Zeeler had the chance to go, I raised that question. But I don't think I need to raise the question this time. It's fairly straightforward. It's fairly obvious. We're going to be losing a very well-rounded member of our team, but just for the extra draft picks that we'll get back, and considering we are very close to being in a little bit of cap trouble, we need to go younger and cheaper in that regard. And like I said, Lieb in the regular season, he's been good for 30 points. Playoff-wise, last year he was okay, but the prior season, not so much. Because otherwise, if we keep Lieb, and again, he's going to be more expensive, there's a chance someone like Corriston's gone too. Barahowski and Webb. Again, I don't think I could get away with getting any compensation for them. So I gotta be honest. I think we're going to let Lieb go. I'm going to qualify him for the moment. Corriston is not wanting to negotiate. He's not going to be worth it at above 2.1, in my opinion. 24 points. He had 49 the year before, but you look at how much he's going to need to be paid. You look at the likes of Barahowski, Webb, Halverson, and Dan Gray is a little bit different with him being a tad bit younger. Right now it's a balance between getting certain prospects into the AHL and just having the AHL team be half decent, but of course we do need to continue to develop these prospects. Like I said, Lieb as it stands is on the way out. It'll be 4, 5, 6 with Krog, 7 with Kaliev. If we let go of Corriston, 8 with Booze, 9 with Hossa, 10 with Bure, Roenick would be 11th, and then Nylander, Whitmore potentially at 12. I think if we can potentially ditch some people here that are worth getting rid of, that might not be the worst idea. So let me take one more look again. Corriston at 2.1. It's not a matter of not being able to afford it. It's just, is it even worth it? So again, pretty well-rounded, good shot, good senses, pretty strong power forward. At 2.1, that's not the worst contract in the world. Like I said, my one concern with someone like Lieb is he just hasn't been putting up the points, and it's probably worth it more to us to just get the compensation for him as opposed to outright signing him. He's going to get a little bit better, but he hasn't shown that offensive dynamicness that's going to make it worth it. He's going to be like an elite third liner, and I don't think we want to pay an elite third liner $4 to $6 million per season. So Lieb can be on the way out. Corriston, I'm still very torn on. Barahowski, 26 points, the NHL level last year. How much is he looking for? 1.9, which I can drop to 1.6. 1.6 for 26 points. I gotta be honest, I'm thinking he might be worth letting go of too. Bryson Webb, good for 20 points. Gonna be at about 1.6. 1.5, 1.6 for Webb and Barahowski. Again, 20 to 30 points. What are the odds that a cheaper option, like a Hossa, could not do something similar? That is the question. And of course, we do have some guys that we could sign to fill out roster spots. I think I'm going to be a little bit ruthless here. And I think I'm going to go with my gut. And I am going to stick with that strategy of paying the stars, but everybody else, it's just not going to happen. So, Corriston, again, you're good for 20 to 30 points, 40 at best. 20 to 30 points, though, 2.1 mil. I think we can have a third liner step up. I'm sorry. It might be a tad bit controversial, but Corriston, you scored a big overtime goal once upon a time. Former 4th round pick in our true first-year draft. But I think I can save money and still have someone put up 20 to 30 points in the bottom 6. I think I can. Might regret this. Corriston is on the way out. Barahowski, similar story. 20 points for 1.6 mil. I think I can play it safe. And I think we can have a younger guy step up. And again, I don't think I'd get that much compensation for Barahowski. Webb, good for 20 points. He's going to want the same, like 1.5, 1.6, which isn't bad. But again, I think I can have a younger player step up and take that spot. I'm going to ditch both of them. And Barahowski, again, I don't think I'm going to get any compensation for anyway. Barahowski and Bryson Webb, former 7th round pick. Not a bad player, but he's gone too. We have Halverson, who has put up 17 points at the NHL level once. A couple seasons ago, he was a little bit better. 20-point guy at the NHL level. Absolutely not. So, hate to say it, Halverson's gone as well. Then you have a Dan Gray who's a little bit more unproven. So we're going to look to bring back Gray. The thing with Gray, right? A little bit more unproven at the NHL level. Here's the thing. He's 23 with a solid potential still. I feel a little bit more confident in giving him a chance, seeing what he can do, as opposed to knowing what the other guys are capable of. I think he's one of those guys who can step in for us and do the job. Beret, hopefully you're not looking for a 1-year deal. You are. I'm alright with giving him a 1-year deal, even if he's a bit of AHL depth. He's not asking for a ton. So we'll bring him in. Roenick we're not letting go of yet. He's still looking for a 2-way deal, which is fine. Whitmore at 23. We'll bring you back for a bit, but Moreau, who's a little bit weaker, same age, former 6th round pick in 2022, we're gonna let go of him, and that sets the stage for this roster. So we have 4, 5 with Baldwin, 6, 7, and 8 with Booze. From there, we have our 16 with Reed, and then 17, 18, 19, 20. We need to sign 4 players. So let's go over to unsigned and see who we have here that makes sense. Soro at 19 will not be signed. Svoboda is 20. He'll be the first of 4. Winchester, Canadian, can't be signed. Bouwmeester, Hutton, McCauley, and Vitaloma will be signed as well. I'm going to test it out with the 2 19-year-old Canadians. Actually, in fairness, Winchester's not even that good. We could go ahead and just have 2 random AHL contract, don't want to say scrubs, but people who aren't ours signed that end up playing. So like I said, obviously the NHL roster is going to take a little bit of a step back, but I'm okay with that. We're going to be saving some money in the long run, playing that a little bit safe, a little bit conservatively. Gray, Roenick, Vitaloma, Svoboda, Beret, and Whitmore all accept. There is a chance that Lieb comes back if he accepts the qualifying offer, but likely we are to get compensation for him as we get to the beginning of free agency. First and foremost, before I forget, let's see if we can hire the best European scout available to still have that solid balance, and it's going to be Stanislav Shishnikov, the first guy that we end up seeing there. He's 58, so not sure how much longer he'll stick around before retirement, but that's who we'll look to bring in. And from here, let's take one more look. Because I could still send offers to the players that we just let go of as free agents. So again, we have Lieb as an RFA. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Of course, I'm banking on guys like Roenick and Nylander to be better. So Nylander's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in total. It might not be the worst idea to see what happens with some of the guys that we have available. I'm going to hit sim the next season. We'll get an answer from Lieb, and then we'll take it from there as we end up getting Shishnikov. Now, Lieb will either accept our offer or we'll get compensation. $7.4 million over 3 years from the Blues. We're going to take that compensation. We're going to take that. Overall, I think I'd rather have a first and a third than pay an elite third liner $7.4 million. So we will get a first and a third round pick from the St. Louis Blues in return for Lieb. Of course, the Blues, if I recall right, just had the first overall pick. So that is a pretty big factor. And we don't have a pro scout, so if I search overall, in fairness, it should have... Here, let me search for exact overall, because our players should pop up. No? Should be a way to have it scouted out by players that you only have proper information on. So I'm looking for some of our older guys like Coruscant, who might have already been signed, in fairness. The one thing that I'm worried about... See, it's like Bryson Webb is still there. Halvertson's there. In fairness, looks like Barahowski was signed, but I don't think money-wise we would have even gotten any compensation for him. I think we're okay. Let's go ahead and sim the next season. The one downside is that we might not have 12 forwards for the Doolin Narwhals, but that's not a big loss for us. That's not that big of a deal. So overall, I'm okay with it. We'll get to the start of next year. We'll see what this roster's looking like, which I'm feeling pretty good about. Player development's going to be a big thing, like I said, for guys like Roenick and Nylander. But why not make those major changes? Why overpay bottom six guys? Why, basically? And, simply put, just because someone has a better overall doesn't necessarily mean they're going to perform, as we witnessed in the playoffs. So, you give these guys 9, 10, 11 games or so to try and do anything, and they end up with 1 point, whereas in the regular season, they were 20 to 30 point guys. It's a tough call. That's all I'm saying. But I'm not going to stay loyal necessarily to bottom six players. We got to play it safe. We have to keep that cycle going of having the top guys locked down, but then bringing in the younger prospects around them. We still have the champions team status. Goaltending-wise, it's looking like Sestito and Wilson, Iliakis and Saprikin. Defensively, we know our top six. Jenks will obviously be sent down, and we know that defense is pretty much good to go. And then forward-wise, that is 10, 11, and 12. So Nylander and Roenick, we don't yet have it set in stone for how good they are. So I'm thinking we will... we'll look to play them in the preseason here. So let's send down Redden. And in fairness, we'll send down Fragapani for Whitmore, and we'll also take a look at Eddie here in the preseason. And we'll see what the roster's looking like. That's really the only question mark, is I'll have to remember to change that new Russian scout. Make sure he's sent over, or someone's sent over to Switzerland. But that's really the only point of contention, is who will round out the bottom six this year. And for the most part, I think we're still going to be okay. It might be a little bit lower in terms of overall, but again, you have to remember, one of our best seasons was out of nowhere, where lower overall-wise, we still did okay. So, not freaking out about it too much. I still like our chances in this next season. And of course, we'll get the final look here, though, at what some of these guys are looking like. Let's stop the sim, and we will set up the roster for the beginning of our next season. So goaltending-wise, we know we're good. Defensively, we know we're good. Forward-wise, Whitmore up to a 76. So I think Nylander and Eddie. Nylander, Eddie, and Roenick for now will be sent down. We'll see what these guys look like as we continue onward through the season. Maybe they continue to develop at the AHL level, and we call them back up. But for now, we have the decision to make on what this roster will look like. And we could bump up Krog if we wanted to. And I think I will. I'm going to give him the chance, but if he starts taking penalties, we'll bail on that idea. We're going to have Booze and Hossa, I think, at center. So the bottom six, weaker in terms of overall, but could get better as we move along. We're going to have Niedermeyer, Zieler, Fuller, Rokon, Lalonde, and Pielstrom. Goaltending-wise, you already know. And down in the AHL, as mentioned, we'll pretty much just look to optimize this. We might have to rely on a couple of non-contracted players. But for the most part, we're looking fine. So Bannister will be in. And then Dadonov will be out for Hancock, with Waters and Dadonov both being 7th D potential. And we'll sort out that roster as players continue to develop. We'll see what the overalls end up being. Jerome Theodore isn't ours. Francois is. Whoops. Indeed. Former 4th round pick. We'll see how he develops. Lang, which will be out for Svoboda. Arkhipov is ours. Who is the next guy that's not ours? That would be Skewin. The old Skewin. Theodore is not ours, though. So, case in point, it'll be Skewin and Terrell that end up staying on this roster. And we'll optimize it from there. Nick Reed, I think, as well. No, he is ours. Okay. So from there, we'll optimize the roster once we see what the full overalls and potentials are. As mentioned, for the most part, I'm feeling a little bit optimistic. Maybe, just maybe, we went a tad bit overboard with some of the guys that we ditched. Maybe we could have kept one or two and bolstered up and still had the roster be somewhat half decent in terms of bottom six when it comes to overall numbers, at least. If we wanted to bail on that idea, is anybody else available? It's not looking like it. I think all of our guys ended up being snatched up with the exception of Cook on defense. So we are committed to that. This is the team heading in to the next season. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Again, it didn't start off on the highest notes. Let me know what you think of the moves at the draft, and as far as the roster management goes, kind of cycling out players, giving new faces a chance. We actually went undefeated in the preseason, but that's, I guess, not all that surprising when really we only had a couple of forward changes. How do you think we'll do this season? You know the deal. So as always, make sure to support the video. You know what that means. The liking and the commenting and the subscribing and the notification bell garbage. Support the video, support the channel. Check out everything that's in the description. And I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.